End of the day's proceedings. We've been listening to more of Geoffrey Craft, and I'm joined with Bethany Riley from the Morning Star.
Hello.
What do you reckon? Do you get a bit close to the mic? Yeah. So, what have you made of Geoffrey Clark? Geoffrey Craft. I keep calling him Clark because
it's because of Richard.
Oh, they're so annoying. For my tweets, they're probably full of that. What have you made of Geoffrey Craft's evidence?
Yeah. Well, he's giving much more away than yesterday, but that's not difficult. It's like refreshing, but just because of the comparison with yesterday, not actually because he's really giving much away. I think his evidence has basically just confirmed what was sort of known about before in how the SDS targeted groups that weren't even considered by the police to pose a risk of violence or even public
just
disorder.
In case, lots of just in case.
Yeah, like the counsel to the inquiry, David Barr, said, was this just in case approach taken by the SDS more in general? And I think he said, yeah, that's a fair assumption to make. So it just goes to show that people's lives were really deeply intruded on. Just because their group could potentially pose a risk of public disorder in the future. Yeah.
And also that it wasn't just that the field officers, this unfiltered approach to kind of doing things, that it wasn't just the field officers doing that. When the reports were coming back, he admitted there wasn't much filtering going on after that fact. And that's why we've got all these reports we're seing that they've been redacted by the inquiry. But before then, it was all that information has been kept on file for 50 years. That it's not just that just in case, it didn't, never mind. It's like the two, you just said that the removal of the two, the end of the deployment of the two undercover officers in the Workers' Revolutionary Party, they were never replaced because the Workers' Revolutionary Party there was no justification to having officers in there. But the Workers' Revolutionary Party file wasn't then destroyed. I mean, they decided there was no reason for it. They admit there was no reason for it, but all the files were kept and all the information was still there.
Yeah, which I can't imagine how disturbing that is for the people in those files. I think Madeleine made quite a good point in the last phase of, what if our country fell to a malign government or something.
Imagine that, a malign government in Britain.
That we don't have right now.
Yeah.
Then what would be done with that information? It's not harmless. It's again, his attitude is that what they were doing didn't have much of an impact on the people if it was just sort of randomly hoovering up information, but it does because it's the...
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. And so Geoffrey Craft, he was head of the unit, and after he was head of the unit, he went on to be head of S Squad, which meant that he had oversight of the SDS through the 80s. And you really get the impression he was a company man, even though he would just do these glowing reports, comments about the annual report as they were sent off. You get the impression that once you've been in the SDS, it's kind of like you're part of a special club. I think that's really kind of colouring how they're giving evidence. I noticed that Paul Gray was mentioned to him, and he's like, "Oh, I know him," and he would tell us that, yeah, he's a mate of yours, and he's like, "Oh, but nothing whatsoever to do with women." Just very clear about that. And it's that club, that boys club. Yeah. It's definitely prevalent. Though we did mention in terms of the boys club, we're on about his infiltration of CND, which happened on his watch, and he said, that was just because of the Green and women, so he had to find a woman. And it's what? But to send in to infiltrate the Green and women. Let's put to him that actually you sent male officers into CND generally, and he was like, I'd forgotten that part. But that it was so notable. He'd forgotten so much, but he remembers when they had to get a woman because it was so unusual to do that. Yeah.
They did have women right at the beginning, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then
Sandra.
I think they went through a decade without having any women officers.
I mean, it's something which I think generally is under... We've got this narrative, which I think is mostly true, that there's something deeply misogynist about this unit, it's a boys' club. But I mean, we shouldn't fail to recognise the really negative impact of the female spy cops officers. I mean, Lynn Watson was one of the first undercovers to be unmasked. has always been portrayed as a bit of a clown, literally, because she was a member of the clown army, but she was also involved with a lot of other stuff and like ruined a lot of other people's lives, which just doesn't get the same sort of prominence in the story maybe as the male officers doing it because of that. I think that's always worth thinking about. But.
Yeah, and there were other women officers later on as well who slept with men in the groups. Christine Green. I can't remember. With animal rights. Yeah, the one who released the mink. Which has always annoyed me because it's like one of those things. Animal rights people are so stupid. Releasing mink into the British countryside. It's like it was a cop. But anyway, yeah. Oh, that was something that Kraft said as well. He did the comparison of animal rights activists' actions with terrorism.
Yeah, akin to terrorism. Yeah. Like firebombing. What you mean, like like Bob Lambert planting a bomb in Debenhams? You mean like that? Like that firebombing? You know. Yeah, attacking research labs, what, like Christine Green, just all these things which, was undercover cops doing. There's not to downplay like kind of the seriousness of like the effectiveness of the animal rights movement, which is inspiring and brilliant, but
Says the animal rights activist.
Says the animal rights activist, So we're currently waiting for follow-up questions for Geoffrey Kraft. I don't get the impression we've got anything else of interest out of him today, though. He has been very guarded, as much as. Like you said, it was so much better than yesterday, but like that was
the bar
such a
was
low,
incredibly low.
incredibly low. That like it just I think he's been quite candid about certain things that he hasn't thought about in advance. The thing he's thought about in advance, like he's been very quick to say no, nothing about that. And it simply can't remember. I mean, and it's always the controversial things. Though it was interesting, he did say. I mean, I don't know if he I felt like he dropped himself in it when he was saying about how he gave the full details of Michael Scott's undercover status to the magistrate and the magistrate's clerk in that one case, which made me go like, oh, he's freely admitting it. But then, of course, it's on file, I guess. I suppose he just figured he couldn't not. Or maybe he just doesn't understand the seriousness of that kind of miscarriage of justice.
Yeah, I don't think he does. I don't think they were really considering much at all back then about that. They thought they were above the law. I mean, I think that's what's coming across always. The seriousness of the miscarriage of justice situation, and then also no consideration given to trespass. Going into people's homes.
It's very telling that. I mean, I think that where it was put to him that he was very aware that having sex on duty was an offence and had been wrong, and they never discussed it, but it had definitely been wrong, and everybody knew. And there's we didn't really think about entering search and seizure. It's like, well, why not? And it's like, well, because the having sex stuff has been a media issue. You've gone into this interview with that in your mind as like a better cover for that. Whereas the other thing you just kind of forgot would be an issue, and then you asked it and you've just been honest and I never really thought about that. Why would I?
He's just sort of fallen back on the security services defence as well, saying, oh well, if they were telling us to do this, then we assumed it was legal. Yeah.
Also, one of the things he's repeatedly said is about left-wing groups infiltrating trade unions. That he really doesn't accept that left-wing people have any right to join a trade union for their own material interests. The only reason why a left-winger would join a trade union is to infiltrate it. He even talked about extending Soviet influence at one point, which you get the impression that is the opinion of the establishment about trade unions generally, right? Yeah,
he just encapsulates that police way of thinking.
Yeah. Somebody commented he was the poshest spy cop we've had so far. I think he's on a par with Paul Gray, to be fair. I think Paul Gray was pretty posh as well.
Yeah, he's definitely up there, you can tell.
He's a chap of breeding,
C pronunciation.
Pronunciation.
What you were just saying then as well reminded me of what he said about school kids against the Nazis, that they would have just been targeted because they would have been involved with the SWP, and that's the only reason.
Yeah.
That was strange, I thought.
Yeah, he definitely, he was, when the Colin Clark's rise within the SWP was described as a jolly good thing, and he was like, yes, a jolly good, just this, there was a definite sort of a certain way of thinking there, in there, and an obsession with, so clearly a bit of an obsession with the Socialist Workers' Party.
A massive obsession.
Yeah.
I think they were seen as the prime target for many years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not to, you know, but come on, man, innit, you know. Would you to go back in? Oh, we've been 10 minutes now, so would you to go back in the next 5? Is there anything else you want to mention about today, or anything else about the inquiry hearings? You're the only journalist who kind of turns up every day. How do you think the whole thing's been going in this phase?
It's been very different from the last ones. Just concentrating on the managers. They're much less likely to let slip something because they have more to lose, because they were higher in positions of responsibility. It's been much shorter. I think I expected them not to say very much on sort of sexual relationships, on miscarriage of justice issues. So it's kind of been what I expected, really.
Fair play. Well, we'll be back. I don't know if we might do another recap after the last little bit, but we'll be back again tomorrow. Who we got tomorrow? It's I can't even bloody remember. They also merge into one. But there's 2 more days of hearings, 2 more lots of. Oh, it's Angus McIntosh tomorrow, I think.
Oh, we hear a lot about him.
Yeah, that should be interesting. I was saying a thing about like not giving that much away because they don't want to. But I get the impression there's a certain amount of loyalty to their unit as well, you know, like kind of, though some of the former undercovers dropped them in it a bit, plenty of the others didn't. So I get the impression the managers are like kind of standing by their men to a certain degree, which is, you know, if you want to see solidarity, check out the cops. They're really good at it.
They had to keep justifying the existence of the SDS as well, so they're not just people who kind of got roped in hoping for the adventure or whatever, and then realising it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. They led this unit. They had to justify its existence all the time to the Home Office, and they don't want to believe that they spent that many years of their lives doing something anti-democratic and completely worthless. Yeah,
that's very true. I mean, particularly someone like Kraft, who, you know, I mean, he like one way or another, he spent a huge amount of his life with the SDS, either, you know, as a member of the unit or when he was higher up as part of the oversight of it.
I think it was four years, kind of like second in command and head in total, and then many years in special branch.
Yeah, with oversight of the unit. So like he is a real company man. Anyway, we'll be back. We better go back in. We're about to restart again. We'll see you all soon. Cheers.
Bye.
Oh shit.